I do a lot of story times. I like to share people's perspectives that don't always align with mine. I am very heteronormative, but that doesn't mean that my story times need to follow that path. Sharing other people's experiences is a good way to expand without necessarily going too far. I got this story time. This is the story time of a neurodivergent, nerdy, awkward girl. Let's get into her story. Oh, she's also a romantic. So we're bringing in another way of being. Okay, she says, to summarize, before I start, I'm going to speak on my experience as a nerdy, neurodivergent, awkward woman who has other nerdy, neurodivergent, and awkward men that are attracted to me. And I'm also going to have an anecdote of a situation I'm going through right now. I identify as non binary, but for the purposes of this story, I am a woman, as I was born a woman and I was socialized as a woman. And additional context, you will need to know that I am neurodivergent. I have not been diagnosed, but I have been told that I definitely am by other people who are diagnosed autistic. Growing up, I was very shy and awkward, and I did not have many friends. My shyness growing up caused me to have very little experience with socialization, and to this day, I have issues with knowing how to interact and socialize. Anyways, growing up, there were few instances of me making friends with awkward, nerdy, shy boys. A lot of times, these boys would eventually decide to ask me out. So I learned early on that whenever a woman shows some kindness to them, they develop feelings. Unfortunately, the women that show kindness to these awkward men don't really know how to set boundaries as they don't have a lot of social experience. At least that was my experience growing up. There were social outcast boys who would hang around me because I was understanding. In reality, I was just afraid of conflict. Who would awkwardly flirt with me and make me uncomfortable. One boy in particular, I remember in high school, would infantilize me because I was so starved of affection at that age. It made me feel good, but now I know how horrible of a dynamic that was. I'd say I'm really behind my peers when it comes to my social skills. So I'm still in a bit of a high school mindset when it comes to socializing and dating, especially. I have a very, very strong fear of being seen as a bad person, which is one of the things that kept me back from making friends. I was scared of gaining a reputation of being an annoying or mean person. So when I make friends with somebody that I really don't want to hang out with, I don't really know how to end it without feeling like the winner of the biggest a hole contest. That brings me to my little anecdote that I'm going through right now. I have made friends with a guy who is very obviously neurodivergent. He has been a great help in helping me make new friends and gaining more confidence in myself after losing another friend group because of a breakup. He is a self-described autistic extrovert, and so he was able to introduce me to a lot of other people to build up my social circle. Eventually, he ended up confessing to me in his car in a dark parking lot that he wanted to date me. He asked me to give him a chance and to give dating a chance. Something you need to know is that I am a romantic. That means I physically cannot feel romantic attraction. And I told him this. I told him I have a small subcategory of aromanticism called lithromantic. It's very frustrating. It's almost like a condition. So I'm pretty sure it's caused by trauma of some sort, but I'm not sure yet. But he knows that whenever anybody has romantic feelings toward me, I will be extremely uncomfortable. It's called a romantic repulsion. It gets worse over time and it makes me physically uncomfortable to be around that person. And he knows this. He knew it from the very beginning of our friendship. He even told me weeks prior that if he ever developed feelings towards me, that he would never tell me. And here he was going back on his word in a dark parking lot in his freaking car. I was so angry at him for doing something that he literally said he wouldn't do out of respect for me, fully knowing that it would cause me a lot of discomfort. And he still had the audacity to ask me to give dating a chance, knowing that I am literally a romantic. To compare it to another situation, it's like a man asking out a lesbian, knowing she is a lesbian, knowing she would feel betrayed, and having already gained her trust by saying he would never do that. This was months ago, and I told him that I would need time to forgive him, but we could still hang out. Over time, I have been more and more uncomfortable by his presence. I have tried mitigating by only hanging out with him in a group setting and stopping our movie nights. But whenever I try to explain to him why I'm uncomfortable, because he can tell I am shutting down around him, he whines. He tries to assure me that he understands, but he still acts like a freaking baby about it. And here's something that makes me feel so mean, but I really, really should be more careful being friends with autistic men. On one hand, autistic people should be welcomed in social spaces and people should be friends with them. But on the other hand, the inability to understand social boundaries can be really hard for those people that are trying to be their friends. He constantly tells me that if he is doing something wrong, I should tell him. But I keep explaining to him that it is not a normal thing socially to do. So people who are not experienced in setting boundaries don't really know how to set them constantly with somebody who constantly oversteps them. And to compound the fact that he is a man and he is larger than me and more imposing than me is such an uncomfortable experience. This man is a stage 5 clinger. He calls me constantly. Whenever he sees me, he decides to hang out with me. Whatever I'm doing, and I'm a busy person. So when I use the excuse that I'm busy to not hang out with him, he decides that he just wants to hang out with me while I'm working. We used to have movie nights once a week, and I guess technically we still do, but I don't feel comfortable hanging out with him in my room. He tries to sit on my bed with me, and I'm sorry, he also smells bad. Wordy anecdote aside, my disposition has caused me to be someone that social outcasts gravitate towards for friendship. I am very kind and understanding towards those people, but as time goes on, I just can't tolerate certain things anymore. Does that make me a mean person? Maybe. I feel like such an a hole when I have negative thoughts towards people, so I hold my tongue, and that makes these awkward men feel entitled to my affection and they don't consider my feelings. I'm learning to make friends with more people, so I'm starting to see the BS. I have not even dated before, and I never had a terrible amount of friends, but the amount of betrayal trauma I have experienced is just astounding. Thinking about the people who hang around me, I can name all of the men who are just hanging around because I am understanding, just absolutely desperate to get into my pants because they can't pull someone who isn't awkward and self conscious. I can tell they are lying when they say they could never have feelings for me, and even if I develop feelings, I would never tell you. BS, BS, BS. Ladies, if you are one of those women who attracts these men, take steps to develop some self worth, make friends with people who you feel are above you. If you are thinking that you don't know how, stop overthinking it. It's literally just a matter of starting to talk with them. If you aren't successful at making friends, it's not because people think you are a loser or whatever. You just don't talk. Join a club. Know people from all over. Don't stick with just one small friend group. Say hi to people in passing by their names. Volunteer. Be active in your community. Smile, laugh, be aware of the conversations around you, and participate. Learn active listening. Be interested in other people's lives. And for the love of God, do not pour your heart out and become a therapist for a social outcast. If you must help them, give them hard, practical truth and don't give them your emotional labor. Okay. So I have not experienced this as a person. I don't tend to have these types that navigate towards me. So what she's saying at the very end with these action steps seem very practical. And what she's saying at the end seems very practical in general with gaining more friends, being out there, putting yourself out there, even though I know putting yourself out there in a friendship type of way or a romantic type of way can lead up to feelings of trepidation that you might get rejected. On any level, rejection sucks. But being emotional labor and being a caretaker for somebody that doesn't know boundaries would probably suck as well. Anyways, jump in. Let me know if you've experienced this type of thing. I know people are getting diagnosed with ADHD and autism and all that all the time. So I'm sure that these types of things are happening. Jump in the comments. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, share.